Welcome to the Grappling Rewind podcast.
Welcome to this week on the Grappling Rewind podcast. In this week's show, we're going to recap Fight to Win 158. We're going to talk a little about American Nationals. We're going to talk a little about the Freedom Grappling Invitational, Ethan Carlson versus Elijah Carlton. We're going to talk a little bit about the AJP, the Grand Slam that happened in Rio. We're going to preview who's number one it is Rodolfo Vieira versus Kaynan Duarte, and talk a little about Third Coast Grappling in 2 weeks. As always on the show, I'm your host, Maine, with my co-host,
Josh.
How you doing, Josh?
Can't complain.
We are once again remote because Maryland is a little bit coronavirus-y, and we're taking precautions. So if the audio takes a little bit of a hit, that's why we're going to try to, get everything working as well as we can. Josh bought a new mic, so hopefully we're continuing to do improvements for the remote show to make it, the best thing that we can. Josh, where do you want to start with news this week?
You want to talk MMA or do you want to talk not good stuff?
Let's start MMA and then let's move into some other news in a minute here because I don't want to start with that. Okay.
So let's talk about Matt Wyman getting mollywopped.
Jesus. So I've been watching more MMA, and specifically the UFC recently since coronavirus, because that's always my first kind of love, and that's what got me into jiu-jitsu in the first place. And so because there's been less jiu-jitsu, I've gotten back into really enjoying and watching MMA. So I watched this entire card live, and this fight was about what, Josh? 22 seconds?
If it was 30 seconds, I'd be surprised.
This fight, I think, was 22 seconds. There was not a significant strike thrown in the bout at all. There was not a takedown completed.
Pull guard by jumping.
You got to pull guard, and then you got to get knocked out. So if you didn't watch the fight, who was the guy that did it? I missed his name, actually. Because I didn't know we were going to talk about it until just now. We talked about it in the pre-show. But Matt...
I don't even remember. Now you're going to make me look it up.
I'm going to make you look it up. But this is the textbook, if you're ever... We love slams on the Grappling Rewind. And if you are ever going to slam someone, this is precisely how to do it. If you've ever seen a cage, a lot of times the cage is put together with paneling on the bottom. And where the joists come together, there's a hard spot. And typically in the cage, there'll be softer, more bouncy spots, and there will be harder spots. And veteran fighters, and pretty much all fighters nowadays, will go around with their corner on the first day when you're allowed to enter the cage, and they will stomp around the cage, and they will go find the harder spots in the octagon where the floor meets the joists directly, and there's less bounce with the canvas and with the actual decking. So that is what happened here. Matt Wyman jumped guard and then was walked over to the hardest spot on the cage. A nice frame was made, and then a big slam and a 12th slam knockout in the UFC history.
I don't think he was planning on knocking him unconscious.
You can't plan for that.
But you hear his corner say, "Bring him over here."
That's another thing people will do. You take someone down in front of your corner so your corner can talk to you more easily.
Right, and especially since it's silent, you're going to be able to hear everything. And it was Jordan Levitt?
Yeah, that's who it was, Jordan Levitt.
And it was 22 seconds.
22-second slam knockout. I love to see him. It's just awesome. We saw Slam KO on Fight to Win, I want to say, in the last 4 or 6 months. Super rare, but this is textbook how to do it. He makes a nice frame on the front of the face, and Levitt just takes him down. So, that was neat this weekend, kind of a rarity, a little bit grappling. Oh, in other MMA news, Gary Tonons fought this weekend.
Oh, yes.
And then Josh watched the wrong fight.
I did, and I was like, he doesn't look so good. And Maine's like, what were you watching?
What fight did you watch?
He looked great.
Yeah, he has
Other
one
than
time.
Him getting kneed in the face.
Yeah, in the second round, because Gary Tonons fights in 1FC. And in 1FC, they use the Asian rules, which typically include knees to the head of grounded opponents and some other, soccer kick rules, depending on the promotion. And so Gary Tonons, after controlling the back for a solid, 8 minutes of 10 minutes in the last, 15 seconds of the second round, eats a square knee in the face on the cage, and I was like, oh, this could turn the fight. And then it totally doesn't, and Tonons takes a very clean decision. I think the first decision of his MMA career.
Yes, he's finished...
everyone.
He finished everybody except for his most recent opponent.
Who's, I think, ranked in 1FC, ranked 5th or 3rd?
3.
Yeah.
He was ranked 3rd, Tonons ranked 5th.
Yeah. So Tonons, I think in the narrative, and they were talking about in the actual fight commentary, very quickly will probably challenge for that featherweight bout for ONE FC. So it's been really cool to follow his career. The grappling exchange in the first, and it really in the first round. The second round looked very good. The first round was utter domination on the back.
Pure domination, pure grappling domination.
Amazing handwork, amazing body control work, a real back attack clinic from Tonon, which kind of surprisingly was staved off by his opponent. I mean, I'm blanking on the name of his opponent because we don't typically cover MMA, but it was
about grappling, so
yeah. But it was a good week to watch grappling guys do MMA. Let's move into the next segment. Josh, you want to take this one, or do you want me to take it?
Run with it.
All right. So Barata has been accused and arrested on sexual assault charges. There's apparently a video that has been retained as evidence with regards to that. Barata, famous for the Barata Plata that we talk about on the show not infrequently.
That's Rafael Freitas for people not knowing his nickname.
Right. So if you see something like that in your gym or are familiar with it, report it. Hopefully this is the last of this in the community that we see. We've seen a lot of it this year. It's unfortunate to say the least. I really don't like covering any of this stuff because it always makes me super uncomfortable that our community has that in it. If you see it, don't allow it. On to other news, unless you kind of got any other pieces you want to talk about, Josh.
No, I'll just echo Maine. Like it makes Maine uncomfortable. It's an uncomfortable situation to talk about, but it is something that needs to be brought up because no matter what's going on, your training partners, female or male, whoever it's happening to, need to be protected. Like, we all might seem like a bunch of lunkheads and, testosterone leaking crazy people, but, we're actually just normal people, and you don't want bad, messed up things to happen to anybody. So, yeah, definitely, if you see it, say something. If you know about it, bring it up. Even if it's an instructor, like, just stop it. Like, you'll find another place to train. Don't let it continue.
Yeah. So moving into happier news. In 2 weeks, we are covering Third Coast Grappling, Third Coast Grappling 5 in earnest, like the next one. We covered we covered so many Kumites. Whenever I say Third Coast Grappling, I just say Third Coast Grappling, Kumite, and then a number. It's the Kumite. Third Coast Grappling 5 taking place December 19th. We haven't got a whole lot of chances to talk about the card, so I wanted to talk about it this week in news. We will preview it in earnest next week following our recap of who's number one. It is a stacked card. Josh and I are both really excited for this. Josh, I'm going to read through the names. Stop me where you want to make comments. Main card, main event, we have William Tackett taking on Felipe Andrew and Nogi.
There you go. We'll stop right there. What a wild match. If you look at the preview picture, though, Maine and I discussed this, and Felipe Andrew looks like a tiny baby.
So it's really funny.
So young.
Felipe Andrew's picture, there's somebody posted, I think, on Instagram or Reddit or something, that Felipe Andrew's IBJJF picture is of him when he was like 11. And if you can go back and find it, and it's like, for some reason, everyone loves to use like 10-year-old pictures of Felipe Andrew. I think this picture is a little more recent, but like they've softened his face, so he looks younger than William Tackett. I mean, I'm fairly certain William Tackett is significantly younger than Felipe Andrew here. Enough about the picture. This matchup is going to be crazy good. Andrew is still technically, Tackett is still technically a brown belt, or he just got promoted to black as well?
I think he's still a brown belt.
Okay. I'm blanking. I know there's been a lot of promotions. I know Elizabeth Clay, who trains with him and Steele and Andrew Tackett, got promoted really recently to black. We will cover her this week on Fight to Win. But, man, I'm excited about these. Both these guys push a pace and like are really, really big submission hunters. And Andrew is a guy that at any point in time can snatch your leg and just finish the match. We saw that on so many Kumites. We've seen that on Who's Number One. We saw that at Euros against Kaynan. Like, very, very aggressive finisher. And Tackett, we have covered him probably once a month for the past, since 80cc trials almost. So, super excited for that main event matchup. Next month, we have Thiago Macedo versus Johnny Tama. I think Johnny Tama is filling in for Michael Musumeci because Mikey Musumeci had to pull out. I don't exactly know why, Josh. Did you catch why he had to pull out?
No idea. Normally he posts about those things, but I didn't see anything.
Yeah, it was a couple of weeks ago. I don't remember why. Next match, we have Cody Steele. We have John Combs versus Pedro Mourinho. Really excited about that match as well. Both super active guys that look for the finish. Both guys we know leg locks and guillotines. So I'm very curious to see. We've seen both guys put guys in guillotines and finish. We've seen both guys fight out of really, really deep guillotines. I think we've seen both guys get caught, too, in that. So I'm very curious to see how that goes. Combs has been a little up and down recently, but when he is on, he is on. Pedro Mourinho, the same way. So very, very interested to see where they're actually going to rank both guys in this division, as Pedro is still a brown belt, although he's a standout brown belt, and definitely I think has a world ranking at the Nogi, open divisions. I'm fairly certain that's correct. Next, we have Cody Steele versus Vitor Silveiro.
Nogi, more stuff. It'll be interesting. Both gentlemen love to push the pace, so it'll be a rough and tumble one. I think it'll be interesting to see what they do.
Yep. We have Andrew Tackett versus Damian Anderson, Jordan Holy versus Ruben Vieira. I think that's a rematch. Ricardo Evangelista versus Guillermo Augusto. That's actually in the gi. Christian Guzman versus Alexander. We have Bruno Matisse versus Adam Bradley, standout from Atos. He's the guy that hit that Scorpion Deathlock variation at Subspectrum a couple of years ago. I think he's a purple belt. It's like a reverse step over Kimura from like reverse Kisikatame. Really cool. You should look it up. We've covered him for a while now. And Robert Ezzo versus Justin Rennick. Should be a really, really good card. Cannot wait to preview that in depth this next week. Josh, you got any other news?
Nope.
All right, let's move it. What are you looking at on your leg?
I'm looking for Musumeci to see if there was a reason if he dropped out or not.
Okay. So let's move on to our recap section. Moving on to the recap of Fight to Win 158. This one was headlined by Rafaela Guedes defeating Elizabeth Clay via decision and to become the Fight to Win welterweight Nogi champion.
That was okay. So now we know both ways to beat Elizabeth Clay. Either be enormous.
Gabby Garcia. I think the only person of recent history that's defeated Clay has been Garcia by having that just really, really heavy pressure game and just preventing Clay from going through that inversion. And then Guedes now.
Yeah, who is just like, just came at her, was just hard and fast paced and was just hip to her game and didn't really let her do anything.
Yeah, I mean, you saw there was a couple points in the match where Guedes would throw like a really close knee cut pass, but she was never able to fully get around kind of the legs of Clay and like settle into position. And then she would realize that Clay was starting to get some leverage, starting to turn her hips and almost begin to take her over, getting to a place where she may be able to take her over. And Guedes would immediately go, nope, and reset the position. And after I think about 6 or 8 minutes of this back and forth of Clay kind of scooting forward in the open butterfly guard, kind of looking for the arm jags a little bit, definitely not looking to wrestle up in that position, really looking for you to start passing on that kind of open butterfly guard. Clay has to come up, and Guedes just sort of continues to frame out. And that was it. I mean, we just saw Rafael get her game going a little more than Clay, and I didn't really think that there was really a whole lot of passing that was like that progressed to the point where I thought it was going to be finished. But Clay also wasn't able to sweep or able to get under, and Guedes kept hitting her with those slams. And I really think the deciding factor was the slams from the guard in this match.
Yeah, I mean, you even see when Clay was starting to activate and got to like the turtle position or whatever, that Guedes just was heavy on the head and just would try to get to the position, but then, nothing came of it.
Yeah, so really good position work. A little bit of weirdness with the flags at the end. They were on the different sides. So I couldn't exactly tell what was going on with the flags. There was some flag raid. Eventually, it was sorted out, and Guedes took a unanimous victory here for the welterweight title for the gi. In Nogi. So a very interesting match. I'm curious to see where they both go from here. Clay is pretty much beaten everyone now except and so she's in almost like a very interesting spot. There's definitely some other grapplers I'd like to see her face, but that list is sort of has dwindled very, very quickly, given the kind of the elite level of competition that she's been able to sub. So really good performance from Guedes here. Just stuck to a game plan. Having Galvao in your corner, I think definitely probably helps that out, as he's one of the kind of better game planners in the sport. And that was on display with his coaching,
Yeah.
Good match. Next match, we had Felipe Trovo defeating Matheus Luna via decision.
Why don't I have that on my results? Hold on just a second.
This was really...
I'm just trying to keep up with all of the stuff that was...
Josh, you've been gone. You've been gone too long, Josh. You're getting rusty.
That's what it is. I'm just getting so rusty, and looking at... There it is.
We also used to, like, in the show, we also used to break between segments. And I think, Josh, when you were, like, on the show a lot more, that was very, very frequent. And nowadays we do the show as, like, one block, maybe a break at some point before the previews. And we usually have time. We used to have time between segments to, like, kind of bullshit and talk and, like, get everything together. And now we're going to run through the show as a whole piece.
Well, the other thing was, too, that Seth used to post the results. And it was easier to read it off of his posts than it was from the Flow website. And the Flow website, you have to, like, click on multiple things to get all of the results.
Yeah.
So I'm, like, scrolling through. I'm like, okay, I'm at the results. They're not in order of matchup. They're just here.
I copied them over into a Word document. That's what I do. In a Word document, so they're bolded. I have my notes under the names for each match, so I keep it all.
That's because you're a professional.
At this point, I kind of want to disagree with you, but I kind of can't, given the hundreds of dollars of camera equipment that I've bought, like, in the last couple of weeks. I brought more camera brackets today. So, moving on to this match. This was a lot of Trovo really playing from the guard, looking for the X-choke from the guard. And he would take the bottom side of the right lapel, if you're facing camera, and loop it over the shoulder, and he went for just a straight-up X-choke. He tried for that lapel variation of the X-choke. And that was really the entire game. I don't think Luna at any point was really able to fully get out of the guard. And really, there was a scramble at the end of the match, but it was Luna working from the guard, working to kind of make distance and kind of flatten the hips of Trovo out here. And Trovo just going to go, cool, we're going to play close guard, and I'm just going to try to X-choke you until the time runs out. And
that's my favorite thing to do. Is try to be as lazy as possible and then collar choke you from the guard.
I mean, it's a good move. We see it kind of creep up more and more frequently. I think guys have really figured out, just better ways to get the collar choke from the guard. I think we didn't used to see as much of, like, the lower lapel being passed over for that hand grip. You don't have to get quite as deep in the collar. You can control the posture a lot more effectively there. And there was some great posture work with the gi that was done here. I don't really want to discount it, like Josh said. But
right.
there's a lot of posture work done. I think we're seeing more advancements with all of the grips now that we weren't seeing a couple of years ago. And as a result, people can choke each other more effectively with the gi than ever before.
We're seeing just, like, the evolution of the basics. Like,
yeah,
we see everybody with all their fancy moves, their, barambolos, their, hook guard, whatever, spider guard, worm guard, whatever it is. But, like, you can still do the basics. You can just update them a little bit and readjust them and make them stronger. Like that cross choke with the lapel over top, like bottom or top, is fantastic.
It's also really hard to defend now because it's not just in the collar of the gi, it's actually over top of that. So the collar actually works. You're pushing in the collar, and it's hard to get leverage against it without just pushing something in between everything. And so it's an interesting development. Again, Trovo gets it done here with really, just consistent, like, attacking.
Yes.
Josh, anything else on the match?
Nope.
Next match, we have Thiago Damanis defeating Ricky Nelson via submission. That was choke. We have Ricky Candela defeating Mark Henry via decision. That was Friday night for the black belts. I don't have a lot of notes on this one, but it was fun as shit. Go back and watch these two guys. Tons of leg lock work, in and out, positional work. You saw dueling toe holds, but not the ones where both guys are just putting them on for show, legitimately going for subs here. Great knee bar attempts, and it was overall just a really fun, well-paced black belt match. Congrats to both these guys in Fight of the Night. These are the kind of Fight of the Nights that I love to see. It was.
And if you're looking on it for the Flow website, it's listed as Rafael Cadena, by the way.
Yeah, that's actually what his name is. I just said it wrong. Yep.
Oh, okay,
Yep.
cool.
Nope, that was just me.
Maybe you just had it something different.
Nope, that was just me fucking up the names because Emilio's the name guy now, and I haven't had to do names in like 100 episodes. So here we are. Next match, we have Ricky Smeglia defeating Matt Favolo via decision. We have Jared Anderson defeating James Spalding via submission. That was by footlock. We had Melissa Bentley defeating Ana Nascimento via decision. We had Dakota Reben defeating Bruno De Carvalho via submission. That was a straight ankle lock. We had Jordan Moore defeating Robert Castello via submission. That was by choke. We had Felipe Amarante defeating Rodrigo Prax. Give me that name, Josh. I can never say it. I can never do it. Praxedis via decision. We had Sam Nagai defeating Marcio Gomez via submission. That was a variation of a Caio Terra footlock, and that was submission of the night for the black belts. And I had to text Josh about this. I was like, hey, Josh, why is he grabbing the pants like this? Because there was a grip here in Nagai's finishing of the Caio Terra ankle lock. And the Caio Terra ankle lock, if you don't know, is basically a foot position variation for the outside ankle lock that Caio Terra used a lot. Mikey Musumeci uses a lot. I think he has the fastest world championship final victory with that submission. And Nagai here is gripping with his hand, with the cross-side hand, the top of Mauricio Gomez's knee, and he keeps adjusting the knee line, and I've never seen this done in conjunction with a Caio Terra footlock, and I kind of wanted Josh to talk about it because I had questions for him when I saw this happening.
I was just assuming that he was adjusting the leg even more and then keeping it from either like shooting through to clear the leg or pulling it back to avoid the footlock. So, because again, it's something that I haven't really seen either, and I'm going on the assumption is that is what he is doing. Because again, he had a good bite on the footlock, had his own lapel, but then was again reaching across and like kind of straightening his arm out. I like how I'm doing this on video, but you can't see what my arms are doing.
Nope.
He's just like punching it to keep it in place. And then it looks like he's just kind of locking it out to make sure that he gets full leg breakage when he does the move.
It was just really interesting. I've seen the Caio Terra ankle lock a bunch. I've watched actually Mikey's his instructional on like how that technique works, and I've just never really seen someone use that hand grip, and it might be something I need to actually message him about and be like, hey, you did this in the match. We on the show had no idea what you were doing. Can you enlighten us, please? Because it was really interesting.
I'd love to know.
It's rare that we see something that we're like, I've never seen it like that before on the show, and especially when there's like a major grip sequence in a finishing sequence like this for a not hugely uncommon ankle lock at the high level. It was really neat to see, and it was definitely kind of noteworthy because it's extremely rare for me to see stuff that like, I haven't seen someone do that before and it works. So that's always really exciting for me. Next match, we had Renato Tavares defeating German Eddie Gomez via submission via knee bar. I love knee bars. On the brown belt matches, we had Mateus Machado defeating Brandon Diaz via decision. We have Colin Toro Santa defeating Michael Lugo via decision. That was
Santa? Really?
Santana. My bad, Josh.
Like, I know you're wearing the hat, but come on.
It's the holiday hat, Josh. It is December, the month of the holiday.
Where's Yarmulke, bro?
Defeating Josh, that's on you. Defeating Michael Lugo via decision, and that was fight of the night for the brown belts. We had Aaron Newman defeating Jonathan Des Jesus via submission via choke. We had Mateus Alves defeating Matthias Bolmer via submission. That was by choke. That was submission of the night for the brown belts. On the purple belt matches, we had Jasmine Rocha, Wagner Rocha's daughter, defeating Jada Alansea via submission. That was via heel hook. We had Josh Hightower defeating Brooks Kinder via submission, heel hook. That was submission of the night for the purple belts. We had David Hudson defeating Jose Gonzalez, or Jose Gonzalez via decision. We had Salvador Gibbs Vega defeating Philip Spano via submission. That was heel hook. We had Will Haddock defeating David Zellner via decision. We had Taylor Clark defeating La Catherine.
You're dying over
Man,
there.
do you want to do the names? I'm not the name guy, Josh. We know
I'm
this.
just laughing. You're saying like Haddock. The guy's name is Hancock.
Hancock, yeah. Yeah, Josh. Why don't you take over the names here? Like old days.
Do you want me to just go into the blue belts?
I'm going to finish purple belts out.
Finish the purple belts.
Taylor
yeah,
Clark defeats La Catherine Transluo via submission via rear naked choke. Brock Reynolds defeats Joel Sams via decision. That was fight of the night for the purple belts. Andrew Neves defeats Rico Rosado via decision. And Kenny Augusto defeats Hector Roman Gonzalez via decision. On to the blue belt matches. Please, Josh, save us from basically what is the outro of the show, which is me apologizing for butchering folks' names.
Hey, it is what it is. I'm reading off of my results page right here, so if they don't match yours, oh well. Ramon Ramos defeated Cedric Louisant via heel hook. Achilles Hosha defeated Jake Strauss by decision.
That is Wagner Hosha's other son, or other child son. Been really active on Fight to Win.
A kid. Juan Rodriguez defeated Garrett Garcia by knee bar. Lenin Gonzalez defeated Isaiah Correa by decision. Michael Casedo defeated Jamal Kayat via decision. Justin Camacho defeated Braylon Carroll via decision. Micah Cox defeated Alberto Robleto via triangle. And Danny Harris defeated Victoria Sargent via decision.
Yep. So I have some different results on that, by the way.
Okay.
It's all good. On to the kids and teens matches. Josh, want to take those away?
No, I'm going to make you do them.
We have,
apparently you have different results
Mason
than I
Odella
do.
defeats Enab Chambly via decision. Iko Moreno defeats Elwood Gorham via submission. That was via armbar. That was submission of the night for the kids and teens. Nadir Shalby defeats Gabriel Anseo via decision. And Ethan Tran defeats Andy Yair Cruz via submission armbar. Angel Pareto defeats Kai Amarante via decision. That was Friday night for the kids and teens. All right, well, that does it for our recap of Fight to Win 158. I appreciate everyone sitting through me butchering the names. Hopefully Josh will pick this up next week, and you don't have to listen. We have to do that again, Josh. We learned like 160 episodes ago that I'm not the name guy.
Look, I've fallen into bad habits myself. I keep hearing myself say
Yeah, you'll get back to it. So let's see. That does it for our recap of Fight to Win 158. I want to talk a little bit about American Nationals and not about many results other than like Hassam Rita is now in the U.S. There's a really cool article. There's a really cool like video piece that Chase Smith put up on Flow Grappling, basically going, hey, if you don't know who Hassam Rita is, you should. New black belt from Japan, technically from Ghana, but has spent about the last 18 years of his life or so in Japan. Recently moved to the U.S. Now, I think training out of Detroit Jiu-Jitsu with David Garmo. Garmo was the one coaching him. Hit a gang of submissions in his weight and in the absolute. We've covered him for...
He only lost to Pedro Hosha.
Yeah.
So
we've covered a bunch on the show, both of those guys. So keep a lookout for Hassam Rita. He has a big highlight reel up from the event that you can watch. Really, really good submission hunter. I'm a big fan. I'm really curious to see, now that he's in the U.S., I assume he kind of talked about in the interview doing a ton more of the IBJJFs in the U.S. So I'm super curious to see how he looks there. He looks super good at American Nationals, and he's a guy that we've covered for the past few years. I think before even his match with Lachlan Giles, I think we were covering him when he was a brown belt on Quintet. So, look out for big things from Hassam Rita. He had a very standout performance from American Nationals. Now, American Nationals, at the time of this recording, didn't have all of the matches parted out and with results up yet. So we're not going to, fully cover those just because we would end up butchering it. Also taking place, any other kind of thoughts on American Nationals or Hassam Rita?
no, what you can go back and watch, definitely do. Go through Flow, go through whatever you can find it on, and get your more jiu-jitsu fix.
Yep. Also happened this week was the Abu Dhabi Grand Slam. Kind of struggled to find a bunch of the matches. Antonio Zanella, make sure I get his name right.
That was correct.
Yep. Posts a lot of the videos on YouTube if you want to see him. I think he has most of the finals matches up for the brown and black belt women's matches and for the black belt men's matches. A couple matches that were fun. The ones that I really wanted to kind of tell you to go watch if you get a chance. I'm blanking on. Oh yeah, the Eric Muniz match. I think that was the Absolute versus Eduardo Lopez. Josh and I both commented on that the AJP has changed their rules. I think the last time we covered them, and we talked about the rule change probably 6 or 8 months ago on the show. What do you think, Josh? Is that about right?
Something like that, yes.
And they have changed their penalty structure and points awarding. So a lot of times matches start at 1-0 for points. And again, I need to go back and reread the rules because it's been such a time since we have covered AJP. But we saw that both take place in the a couple of the women's finals matches, in the Muniz match and then also in the Gutenberg-Pereira match. There was a penalty call, I think, that ended up being points awarded for Pereira here. He ends up taking his finals match 6-0 over Ryder Amrala. So overall, a good week. You can find the results for the AJP on the AJP Tour's website, and all the matches.
They have their
Yep.
They have all the mats up. The thing is, like, you have to go through
And tab through them manually.
and tab through them manually to get through to all that stuff, which is never fun. Someone who I enjoy covering, especially like seeing in Spider, Fabricio Andre took second place in his weight class at 62 kilos. So, just start digging through the stuff and either use Antonio Zanella's YouTube or go through AJP's and, just start tabbing through the finals, because that is a lot of footage that you have to go through.
I think each mat is usually about 8 or 10 hours. They usually have 8 to 12 mats depending on the event, and all the stuff's up. And if you do ever want to watch just like, hey, what do high level competition what does it actually look like, not just the world finals but actually like another organization other than IBJJF, you can sit and watch the entirety of those matches, because I'm honestly a huge fan of the AJP rule set. It is a much faster match. I think black belt matches are only 6 minutes. They have some changes with how you can grab the gi. Like, you cannot grab into the pants on the upper belt at all anymore. That was a rule that was changed last year. They have a more aggressive stalling and penalty calls. And overall, I think it's just much more viewer friendly. So we try to cover AJP whenever we get a chance. Also, another guy making really great AJP content is a guy named Will Stafford. I'm going to make sure I get his name right. Yeah, Will Safford on Instagram. If you're interested in AJP or how that league structure works, go follow him, watch his content. He puts out amazing content cut in with athlete footage and narrated with who you're watching, why you should be watching them, why you should be paying attention, some of their history with the organization. Overall, great content, and I love to watch it. That he's one of the primary ways that I kind of stay most up to date with AJP. So go and watch and follow his content. Josh, any other kind of notes on AJP or any other results you want to go through?
No, but again, if you want to see a little quicker pace stuff and, see some people that you might not see in different countries, like a lot of Brazilian talent that might start flowing into people from the US's, frame, definitely watch it, because you will see people that can't make it over here because of travel restrictions or whatever.
Visa issues or, pick and
all
choose
of
your
those
way.
things.
Yeah, so I would love to cover the Brazilian Grand Slam in more depth, but it's just right now it happened yesterday and there's 40 hours or so of mat footage to watch, so it's just untenable to do so. But yeah, there's a bunch of guys here that I don't recognize that are in the top results, so that's always super exciting to me because it's new high level talent coming out of Brazil that we're gonna see probably in the next couple years. So that is always exciting from like a development or like a world stage perspective for me. Moving on, Josh, you want to talk about Freedom Grappling, Ethan Carlston versus, give me his name, Elijah Carlton?
Sure.
So this was a challenge match. I do not know if we've ever covered a challenge match on this show. This was Ethan put up $5,000, Carlton put up $5,000, and they had a no time limit submission only match that Freedom Grappling broadcast for all the marbles, basically for $10,000. I know Gordon Ryan famously did these a lot. I think it purple and brown and early black, Josh. Is that correct? You were kind of more familiar with what was going on then. He'd do $500 gym bets, I think is what it was back then.
It was more like brown and into black before he really,
Before the EBI stuff. And even a little bit into that. And I think he'll still do them.
Like even into that, he definitely put up a lot of money, like definitely against Dylan Dennis on multiple occasions, tried to do it. And not a lot of people took him up on that offer. He did it against...
He did it recently in the last year because he talked about it. And it was a very quiet thing. It was like a $500 basically gym bet. And I'm blanking on who it was, but he mentioned it very briefly. And it was a guy that I don't think I was very familiar with. But, I appreciate guys still doing this. And Ethan putting up the money and Carlton putting up the money. I like when guys kind of put their money where their mouth is, if you can afford to do that. If you can't, please don't do that. There are other tournaments and other ways that you can,
Yeah, I don't got $5,000 to throw around.
But I like high stakes stuff. So if you can afford to do it or you can get a backer to do it, go do it. This match was really interesting. Very, very high pace. I think only about a 3-minute match, Josh. Is that right?
In total, the entire video that was posted up was 3.5 minutes.
Yeah, you can find this on Elijah Carlton's page on Instagram. I think also Freedom Grappling Invitational has it. Ethan Carlton's page has the highlight of the finish, which was I think an outside heel hook by Carlton. Is that right, Josh?
Yeah.
But yeah, overall, good match.
Elijah went in and attacked the feet a lot, and Krellinston did Krellinston stuff, and then came up and did his thing.
Yep. Overall, very leg locky, very high level leg lock battle back and forth, and Ethan's eventually able to kind of get this exposure that he needs on the outside of the leg. Really reaches back with a long arm and is able to get it, turns it over, and that's the finish. But yeah, go back and watch the match because it's cool. We don't get a chance to cover challenge matches a lot, especially with high level guys. So it's definitely something that's unique, and you should go and support that by watching it because that's how we see more stuff like that, and it broadens jiu-jitsu. I don't think I have any other stuff that I want to touch about. Submission on the Shore, an all-women's event, also took place this last weekend. I'm having a problem finding results and match footage for that, so I'm going to kind of continue to search this week, but that also took place this weekend. That is all I have for results this week. It was a nice week full of results. Josh, do you want to get into their preview for who's number one, Kaynan Duarte versus Rodolfo Vieira?
Yes.
All right. So moving to the preview for who's number one, Kaynan Duarte versus Rodolfo Vieira. I don't know why I had to say it twice as we just did it. But this one is a rematch of the Spider Invitational. Was it the finals or the semifinals, Josh? Do you know?
Semis, I think.
Okay, because I forget who Duarte faced in the finals. But yeah, I think it was the semis. That was in the gi. That was in 2019. Since then, we have not seen Rodolfo compete in jiu-jitsu. We've seen him in the UFC, I think, in two separate matches, winning both. I think he is 9 or 10-0 in MMA, but he's switched over to MMA. He made that switch about 5 years ago. Kaynan has not made that switch and is still jiu-jitsuing it up. So this is now in no-gi. And Josh, how do you think it'll play out, and kind of what are the differences you think that'll happen from the 2019 match in Spider and the IBJJF style rules and the IBJJF rules in the gi versus this? I think this is a no time limit sub only. It might be a 15-minute. Yeah, it's a 15-minute. There's one other sub only match on the card in Third Coast Grappling next week. How do you think it plays out? How do you think it looks different?
Well, it's going to be far more high paced than the gi match. Rodolfo is forward moving. That's it. He's a pressure monster, and he's going to look to just, I'm assuming, overwhelm him. And as of recently, he's been training with Cyborg and Buchecha and Shoeface.
Antonio Carlos Jr. if you're not familiar with who Shoeface is. Also fights in the UFC. Buchecha has also announced his transition over to MMA, so a very, very high level. Wait, didn't Shoeface also have, doesn't he have like a ADCC medal or a world medal? Or like a...
Has, think, world medal, but
yeah,
also a UFC fighter.
Yeah, and been a UFC fighter for a very long time. For some reason, I think Shoeface has a world, like, does he have a win? Like a gold at Worlds?
A black belt title, he might.
He's one of the guys that I think has one, and I'm blanking on it, but for some reason, I always think that he does. But regardless, he's been in that room with just straight killers and guys that are going to pressure and push into him and be very, very aggressive. We've seen Kaynan kind of do that a little bit, but I think Kaynan is much more of a reactive fighter, Josh. Is that the way to put it, you think?
I wouldn't say that. He's just more of like a... He just, like, moves where his opponent doesn't want him to move. So maybe that is more of a reactive fighter, but, you know, the guy just does whatever he kind of wants to do and just attacks you no matter what, and tries to, well, recently, and they just recently did a write-up of it, has been attacking that triangle from the back.
Yeah, he was hitting that a ton at pans, which is kind of out of nowhere. We really hadn't seen that from him.
4 out of his 5 matches were finished that way.
Yeah, so I'm curious to see if he's going to do that, be able to do that on Rodolfo. Again, we haven't seen as much from Rodolfo recently, so it's really hard for me to tell. Like, we haven't covered a lot of those matches on the show, so they're not really fresh in my mind. I'm also curious to see how he's going to look with sort of that much time off of, you know, the high-level professional scene. I think the previous time we covered that was him in 2018 at Black Belt CBD. Or was that Dorino that took that?
No.
That was him. Him and his sister.
Rodolfo was Black Belt CBD. It was because he and his sister both won it.
Competed on the same card. Yeah, again, we have 2 tournaments in 3 years, and I think before that, I think he took a 2 or 3 year hiatus off of that. What are you finding, Josh?
I'm reading Zapato's Cara de Zapato. There we go. Shoeface's thing, and it's saying that he took gold in the 2010 World Absolutes, and I was like, I don't think so. Oh, at brown belt.
Okay, that's maybe what I was thinking about.
Okay. I'm seeing bronze for black belt only. So,
but still, world medalist. You know, in recent years. So in a really good room. I want to lean Duarte here just because every time I picked against Duarte, I'm stupid. Yeah. And Rodolfo just has too many X factors, kind of that don't lend me to picking him over Duarte, who's just so fresh, so young, not focused on MMA. So that's sort of where I want to lean. I don't really know. I could see it being kind of an ugly decision. But I can also see Duarte going in there and sort of putting Rodolfo on the back foot and, you know, being on top here and getting around him. I don't know if we'll see a sub here. It wouldn't surprise me to see a variation of the triangle from the back or just a straight up, you know, a trident rear naked choke game for 3 or 4 minutes in the ending of the match from Kaynan. I just think that I'm just curious to see how Rodolfo is going to look after so much time off. Wagner Hoshi gave a really funny interview that basically talked about, look, if you know who Rodolfo Vieira is, check him out because he's legit. He's very, very good. I was thinking it was funny to hear Wagner give him props and basically go, if you don't know, you should know who he is, newer grappling fan.
Yeah. Having seen him compete and just like both on video and live and just watching him come up through the ranks as like a brown belt and, you know, getting the name black belt killer or black belt hunter just from, you know, crushing black belts as a brown belt and then him making those runs, you know, and him being on the tail end of his gi career as Buchecha was coming up and them having all their matches together too. This is an awesome guy to watch.
Yeah, so Subio, again, deservedly a really, really fun main event rematch, but no-gi rematch. So I got nothing else on that one. The co-main event is a featherweight. It's a featherweight bout, but it's a catchweight. So technically, it's a lightweight catchweight bout. The number one ranked featherweight, Gio Martinez, versus the number one lightweight, Kennedy Maciel, Cobrinha Jr. We just saw Gio a couple weeks ago versus Paulo Miao in their, I think, second or third rematch between the two of them. Gio took a very, very close decision victory over Paulo Miao. We just saw Kennedy versus Junior Ocasio, who is still the bantamweight champion at Fight to Win. I think at a 45-pound match at Fight to Win, and Kennedy was able to get an armbar sub on Ocasio. Josh, how do you see this one playing out?
Oof. We're just going to see a high pace. It's going to be moving and grooving.
I think we'll definitely see Gio pull here, and then we're going to see Kennedy working to pass. Gio is notoriously stupid hard to get around, but Kennedy throws a pace and will throw like a level of offense. I'm curious to see if he'll be able to kind of like not expose a hole, but if he'll be able to start getting something working just at the pace that he's going to consistently be trying to pass Gio from.
Yeah. I think Kennedy honestly takes it. Like, he's just going to put on this breakneck pace, and I don't know if Gio will be able to keep up with it. It'll be an interesting match either way.
I do think that if Gio's on his butt and has the really open guard work that we've seen from Martinez, I'm curious to see how aggressive, or if Kennedy will potentially stave off a little bit of that aggressiveness given Gio's propensity for leg locks. But kind of looking at this as a microcosm for the Ocasio match, it didn't really seem to phase him at all. Ocasio, is an absolute murderer on the legs, and specifically known for unorthodox leg submissions that you kind of don't know which way you should go. I think even by his own admission, that's, sort of his game. So Gio, I think, has a somewhat unorthodox style, but I think he has a style from the 10th Planet from, I think, 4 or 5 years ago that sort of people have figured out, kind of learned, and sort of systematized a little bit more. So again, I'm in thinking about this more, I think we'll see a really aggressive pace from Kennedy. It wouldn't surprise me to see him pass Gio. Gio's extremely hard to sub. You can watch him versus Satoshi Ishii at Quintet to see Ishii unable to Kimura him. But I'm curious to see if Kennedy, how Kennedy will stabilize on top of Martinez here, and if he'll be able to maybe go to a north-south and sit for a while. But I'm just not certain if he can actually sub Martinez, given just how unworldly difficult it is to sub Martinez.
Yeah.
Kind of same thoughts, Josh?
Yes, absolutely.
All right, moving on to another match that I'm super hyped for. Number one strawweight in the world, Maisa Bastos, taking on the number two strawweight in the world, Grace Gundrum. This is a strawweight, 115-pound match. Grace coming off of a really good submission victory over Patty Fontes about a month ago. I think maybe on the last Who's Number One, or maybe at a Fight to Win, kind of cementing her spot there at the number two. Grace Gundrum, very new black belt under the 10th Planet system. We've covered her for years. I've been watching her since she was a kid, literally since she was a child. Competing, we know what Grace is going to do. She's going to play the rubber guard, and then she's going to go for the legs if she needs to. Maisa Bastos, we know what she's going to do. Actually, what do you?
I'm not even going to pick someone. This is I've picked against Grace multiple times, and I get upset every time. It'll be an awesome match to watch.
Yeah, I kind of want to lean Bastos here, just because I don't know, because I was going to say give her the experience edge, but Grace has been competing against grown men and women for a long time here, and I'm not actually certain if Bastos has the experience edge, which is kind of a weird thing to say when you have a brand new black belt, but given Grace has been competing for so many years, she has a high school wrestling background now that we saw her implement a little bit in 2019 in some of her matches. I'm very, very curious. I think we're going to see a double pull here. And again, I have absolutely no idea how this match will play out, but there's probably not a single result in this match that would surprise me. I can see either lady subbing the other one, and I can see it go to a very, very technical decision that I wouldn't want to have to call. So that's my kind of take on the match. I was super amped for this match after Grace took out Patty. So I'm very, very happy that it got made. This is the match to make at women's strawweight. Next match, we have Roberto Jimenez taking on middleweight Roberto Jimenez taking on welterweight Dante Leon, and at a catchweight of 190. Leon's a gangster for this one. Leon historically a 77.
He's definitely given up some size, but again, he puts on a pace.
Jimenez puts on a pace though too. Like both these guys are known for their fervorous pace.
But the downside of Jimenez is he is uber susceptible to footlocks.
Yeah, that Dante has got an outstanding knee bar game. Everyone kind of sleeps on his knee bar game. He has, looking through his record, looking about his match the past couple of years, has a gang of wins by knee bar and by rear naked choke. And I'm curious to see if that's sort of what he's going to do. We just recently saw Roberto Jimenez take on Craig Jones. I think that was a 205 match. And Craig Jones was able to kind of entangle him in the legs really quickly and get a heel hook. And I think under 2 minutes. If I recall correctly, we've seen Jimenez versus some other dangerous leg lockers, but if Jimenez gets caught, it's typically by footlock. We saw him get footlocked by Felipe Andrew at, was it Pans? The Nogi Pans? Nogi Pans. We've seen him get heel hooked by Pedro Mourinho.
Pans.
Oh, was it Pans? Gi Pans.
Yeah, regular gi.
Yeah, and so, again, I see Leon identifying that, deciding to wrestle with Jimenez for a little bit here, which I'm curious to see how that will go, but going to a bottom position or entering it on the legs and really just hunting, and it wouldn't surprise me to see Leon punch up here and wait and get Jimenez with a heel hook. But if Jimenez can stay kind of prescient, I can see him implementing a top gear and potentially getting to Leon's back, but Leon has just looked so good recently. I kind of predict an upset here with the welterweight taking out the number 1 middleweight. Let's see. Next match we have number 2 middleweight, now up in weight, Wagner Hosha taking on number 4 middleweight, John Thor Blank. What do you think?
As much as Hosha is a gangster and going up in weight, that's a big old jump.
Dude, Thor's a big dude. Thor. It's called Thor. We call him Thor. Like strong as shit. Now actually grappling full-time. When he was ADCC, he was still a part-time guy. I think there was an article that came out this last week about that. It was basically like, yeah, he was still part-time when he heel-hooked Rustam Chiziev and went to ADCC. Like, he's the real deal. He's also a natural middleweight, if not a natural light heavyweight. Versus Hosha, who's moved up and definitely has looked comfortable at 85, but will definitely be the smaller man. We know John's gonna pull, and we know John's gonna look for his leg. Look at the Wardzinski match. I'm curious to see if Wagner plays like a really outside kind of batting at the head game, or how exactly Wagner starts to address Thor's guard here. But
I mean, Thor has absolutely zero issue with just pulling guard, which would force Wagner to just come in and have to attack.
But that's my question is, I don't know how exactly Wagner is going to attack the guard here, because Thor is so dangerous.
He's going to hit him in the head?
Yeah, but I mean, like, how is he actually going to work to pass is my question.
I don't know. A lot of these matchups are just like, I don't want to speculate. I just want to watch and see what happens. So
I predict Thor here. Wagner's a gangster, really hard to sub, but I predict Thor getting in on the leg and Wagner needing to defend that. Again, we've seen a lot from Wagner over the years, so nothing was surprising with Hosha, especially going up a weight class. He's been training a ton with Cyborg, Cyborg, and the whole host Baby Monster, the host of other grapplers at Fight Sports. Always posting training videos, so very curious to see. Rounding out the card, we have number 3 welterweight Ty Rotolo taking on number 9 welterweight Cody Steele. Big difference in the rankings here. Rotolo has looked really, really good. His brother just won combat jiu-jitsu lightweights last week in Mexico. Very curious to see this. I do not know how the wrestling of Cody Steele how Ty will deal with that. I think Steele is definitely a better wrestler, and both guys keep a really frantic pace. But I really like Ty's passing game here if he is able to get on top. And that's, I think, where we're going to see the match. I don't think that he'll probably take out Steele with a leg lock, given kind of the leg lock guys that Steele trains with, William Tackett, the Tackett brothers, Elizabeth Clay. But I can see him getting onto the top, probably not maintaining a mount, but maybe potentially going to like a 3/4 or a fat boy mount and maybe going to the back here. That's sort of how I see this going. I wouldn't be hugely surprised to see Ty take a rear naked choke here. But if Cody potentially engages Ty and gets Ty to play exclusively on the feet, I think that game probably favors Steele a little bit more just with his wrestling background. But we have seen Ty getting better wrestling up and on the feet, and we've seen the counter game with like his Uchimadas and Tayatoshis look a lot better recently too. I mean, we've seen that from Cade as well. So should be a really, really fun card. I'm very excited for it. It takes place December 11th at 8 p.m. I'm going to watch it live for sure, and I'm going to have a good time. So that's all I got for the show. 2 weeks we got Third Coast Grappling. Next week we got, this great card. Josh, what do you got going on this week?
Work. A lot of it.
Nice.
I got a cappuccino machine, so I'm going to play with that too.
At work?
No, at home.
That's nice. That's cool. I just got a bunch of camera equipment, and Rachel and I started lifting again. So that's been fun to be in not jiu-jitsu pain, but just in regular muscle pain. I'm starting to like get back in shape. It's like, all right, we got the wedding in 6 months. We've been engaged a year today. So it's like it's time for me to, get in shape so I look good at my wedding, because that's going to be like...
Are you going to be shirtless?
You'll know, Josh. You'll know. It's my wedding. It's in a backyard. I'm excited for it. I had to Photoshop all the save the date pictures this week, and it's like it's a whole thing now that I realize like, hey, I'm getting married. Like that's a legit thing that's like coming down the pipe that I've got to like prepare for. I'm now in marriage camp, which is like got to get buff, got to get in shape, got to start eating right ahead of the wedding. So I make all the people that are there like jealous. Like, man, he looks good for his wedding. Like it's my time, Josh.
Normally, that's the bride's job.
Josh, we both do the same stuff, so it's like we're both gonna look great. I'm super excited for this. So you're gonna be super vain for no reason? That's me. That's just my week. I got a ton of work. I'm on call today and tomorrow, so I'm really hoping that like the state of Maryland doesn't become more on fire than it currently is. That would be great, but you never know. So that's what I'm hoping for. Other than that, hoping that the Pfizer and Mirena and all that stuff, the trials look great for that. So I'm hoping to inject that in my veins very quickly so that we can get back to training. I miss you, Josh. I want to deal with you hopefully when you're less fat. So please also start running and training so that when we can get a chance to train together, I can deal with skinny Josh and not fat Josh. I speak for everyone when I give you this message.
Except for Zach. Zach doesn't mind either, Josh.
Yo, he's like 250 right now.
Yes,
he's a beef of a human being. Like I sit next to him every other week and do the show, and I'm just like, God, you're gigantic. And he trains with Spencer.
6'3".
Giant man. I'm a tiny man. So that's all I got, Josh. That's all we got. So as always in the show, I'm your host, Maine, joined with my co-host,
Josh.
And we are the Grappling Rewind. We'll see you on the mat whenever that is. Stay safe. If you like the show, please consider sharing it on Facebook with the folks at your gym. It's the best way that we grow the show, and we really appreciate it. You can reach out to us on email.
We also have Instagram. We have Facebook. We have Twitter. We have Google+.
Until that shuts down.
We have a website.
If you have an event you would like to have us cover, please let us know. If you have a name, like most people do, and you'd like to have us stop butchering it,
let us know.
Reach out to us. The show is also available on YouTube, Spotify, in addition to iTunes and every other podcast service. We very much appreciate your time, and thank you.